Hey, what's going on, guys? Like Butter here, and today I'm making a Division 2 video to talk about all the new stuff they went over on State of the Game today, and I want to get you guys up to date in case you missed State of the Game, and if you saw it, maybe you didn't catch everything that was in it. So I have a list of things here that I want to kind of go over, let you guys know. So after going back through the VOD, I realized that they talked a little bit about the loot. Now, you know, this is something I've been bringing up a lot in my last two Division 2 videos. They got a lot of traction, and a lot of people agree that the loot in this game is just not fun to go for. I think a lot of that has to do with all the different variants and just too much RNG on certain pieces of gear, so that it makes it incredibly difficult to make a build. And even when you do make a build, those builds don't necessarily feel great, but it looks like with Title Update 5, they're definitely going to be moving in the right direction. Maybe not so much as I would like them to, but they're definitely taking baby steps towards making going for certain loot feel a little better. And there is new loot coming in Title Update 5 as well. So the PTS for Title Update 5 is coming out on Monday, July 1st. And this will lock certain content so that the people that are trying out the PTS are going to be testing specific things. Now, with some of the changes that they're going to be doing to skills, this PTS is going to be incredibly important. I'll be streaming it. I'll be giving my feedback and all that stuff. And I'll probably make some videos over here on YouTube as well, kind of giving my thoughts and my feedback. But they did talk about some changes to exotics, which I think is really good. Exotics will now drop from heroic bosses, which will give people more of a reason to farm some of the heroic bosses. However, this doesn't mean that you can skip out on like the Nemesis quest and then just get like a Nemesis drop from the bosses. You have to farm the pieces of the exotic first to then unlock the ability to then get exotics to drop. I don't really like this too much because some of the exotics are kind of time gated, and I just feel like for some people, they rather kind of lay that RNG on running through heroic missions. I think that'd be a little bit better, especially considering you can just craft level 500 exotics, and you're pretty much done. There's no random rolls or anything. So I think although some of the changes to the exotics and the way you get exotics is improved, I do think they're taking a couple steps back, which we're going to talk about here in a second, and I kind of want to give my feedback on. They talked about exotics, which leads me to my next thing. Once they're 500 gear score, they will be max roll weapon damage. So there's no longer, what used to happen is there was basically a weapon damage RNG that could happen. So you could get like 500 gear score and get a little bit lower of a base roll than something else. But now when you're 500 gear score, it's going to be the same weapon damage as somebody else. So in my opinion, this is kind of a step backwards because RNG on exotics are important for the longevity of the game because it gives people a reason to farm more than one exotic. What's going to happen now is now that exotic weapons have set rolls, on top of that, once you get 500 gear score, it's going to be the same balance as anyone else who has that. Now, I think that this could be good for people who may not have a lot of time, but it's going to give less reasons to grind more than one exotic because once you get 500 gear score, you know, Nemesis, for example, getting another Nemesis is just going to feel bad because you already have the max roll. You already have the thing that you want, right? So I think this is kind of a step backwards unless they're going to follow up with some other changes. I always wanted some random rolls or some more RNG on exotics in this game because it feels like once you get one exotic, there's no reason to ever farm for more and try to get a better one. So that's kind of a bummer, at least to me, to somebody who likes grinding the game, but to somebody who may not have a lot of time to try to go for a perfect rolled exotic, now you're going to be able to just basically craft the max exotic that there is. Crafting will now be up to 500 gear score, which is a really good change. So now when you craft your items, they're going to be 500 gear score. They're not going to have like a range anymore from what I've understood. I think that this is a good change because allowing people to, like, for how long it takes to get materials in the Division 2, it's very important that they make it so that, you know, those materials that you're using are going to be guaranteed to have the values that you want. Cassie, who is like the endgame vendor, is now going to be selling 500 gear score items along with some exotics. So they're going to make it even easier for people just to straight up purchase level 500 exotics. So that's going to be even less reason to kind of grind for exotics. So you guys are seeing like exotics, in my opinion, are becoming less and less that rare legendary drop that you would see in something like Diablo or Borderlands. It's becoming more and more just a collectible, and I think that kind of stinks, in my opinion, because I think the Division 2 is in a weird spot right now where some things, for example, the gear has too much RNG, and then something like the exotics don't have enough RNG. So it's very weird, the approach that they're taking to exotics, and I guess I just don't fully understand kind of why they're doing this. Maybe some people hated that they had a 500 gear score item, but they didn't have the max roll. Now, adding the exotics to the drop pool would be a reason to farm those things. However, they're making it so that once you get 500 gear score drop, like that's it. That's all you need. So I don't know. That's a weird way to look at it. But that's kind of just what they're doing. They talked about adding flashlight attachments coming to pistols to appease the people on Reddit that wanted flashlights. That was like their biggest concern for the first 2 months that the game was out. So they're getting their flashlights, but it seems like it's only on pistols. So you're going to have to take your pistol out and you're going to have to, use it to, if you want to go and explore some dark caves or something. I don't know why you would need a flashlight. But they're adding flashlights to appease those people. There are new weapons coming, however, which I'm pretty excited for. The Carbine 7 and the Stoner LMG, which I'll show you on screen here. Both of those weapons look pretty cool. Those are going to be dropping as high ends, I would assume. And there is also an exotic lever action coming out as well, which is basically the exotic version of the 1886 that looks absolutely phenomenal. Hopefully they can find a way to make it useful, because the 1886 isn't really useful in the Division 2, unfortunately. And there are also exotic gloves coming with this as well, which are BTSU gloves, which are basically Black Tusk gloves that give you buffs on your skills. Now, that's what we're kind of going to talk about in the next part of this video. We're going to talk about how skills are getting a complete, I want to say overhaul, but not really. They're basically just buffing numbers so that skills are aligned with somebody who may be doing a DPS build or, like boosting their stats through a tank build. Essentially, what the BTSU gloves are going to do is it's going to allow you to change the way skills interact with each other. They talked about an example of like throwing, the pulse down or like a turret down or something like that and having explosions around it and kind of doing AoE damage. They didn't really go into too many details about what exactly the gloves do. However, we know that it's going to be skill related and most likely going to be used in skill builds. Skills are getting a incredibly large buff. They talked about like certain mods that used to, when you had around 3,000 skill power, certain mods would buff the damage on your skills or the effectiveness on your skills by about 25 to 30%. After these changes, those mods are going to buff skills by 150%. That is a lot. That is literally 6 times the amount of damage. So you're going to see one-shot Seeker Mines. You're going to see turrets that basically melt you in 3 seconds. You're going to be seeing drones that are going to be just blasting you. So skill builds are going to be a thing now. Now, I think this is good for the overall part of the game. I think that skill builds need to be viable, and it kind of sucks that they're not right now. So they talked about like shields being way tankier now with skill power, which is crazy. Who would have known that shield builds needed a buff? Wink, wink. Anyways, so basically all of the skills are getting a massive buff in this next update, and it looks like, at least in PvP, which I feel like PvP isn't really even a discussion anymore. Hopefully they're doing some sort of skill modifiers there, which I'm sure they will be, that will keep, skill builds from completely just one-tapping things. However, if you enjoy the classic rogue system, you got to remember you're going to be stuck with there being no modifiers because, you know, whatever happens in the ODZ just happens without modifiers. You're going to be seeing skill builds. You're going to see Seeker Mines one-shotting. You're going to be seeing some crazy stuff. So I expect PvP to get even worse before it gets better. So we'll have to see how that goes. So if you are playing this game specifically for PvP, you guys are going to, once again, have a pretty bad time with this patch, in my opinion. However, you know, if you're a PvEer and you like skill builds and you think it's fun, I think this next patch will be pretty good for that. They also talked about cooldown reductions being completely removed from the game and being placed in with skill haste. And skill haste is essentially going to be the new cooldown reduction. You're going to be able to build more than 100% skill haste, though, because skill haste is going to work a lot differently than cooldown reduction, whereas like cooldown reduction, you could get like 90%, and that would basically remove 90% of your cooldown time. Well, skill haste is going to work a little bit different. It works on a modifier, so you could have something over like 125%. And what I think that's going to do is, like, if you have 100% skill haste, it's essentially going to cut your skills in half. So 100% skill haste is basically going to equal 50% cooldown reduction is what I think is going to happen. So that's pretty much it. I can show you guys on screen here some of the reworks to the damage on skills. You guys are going to see a pretty big difference in damage. However, I still think when it comes down to it, I think that skills are still going to be very meh, but it'd be interesting to see, like, with these huge damage buffs and these huge effectiveness buffs, to see how it kind of changes up the meta, and maybe it'll even give us incentive to farm for some new pieces. They didn't really give any details on loot. Hopefully there's going to be some loot changes for this update that I didn't go over. If not, though, it's going to be incredibly excruciating trying to farm for some of these new pieces. But anyways, I just kind of wanted to get you guys like up to speed. If you had CDR on your build, that's just going to be replaced with skill haste with the new values, but it is getting a bit of a buff, they said. So that's pretty much it. I'm pretty sure I hit almost everything that they talked about in State of the Game. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are you excited that skills are getting a massive buff? Would you like to see, you know, some other changes? I'd love to hear what you guys think. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to drop the video a like if you enjoyed, share it with your friends, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody.